I'm so excited to learn more about this, Taylor. This is really exciting to combine these two aspects, which are so relevant and important for our world right now. So really thrilled. So welcome everybody coming in on YouTube as well. Welcome, welcome. We are here with Taylor Shuler, and her topic today is Natural Design for Thriving, Astrology and Permaculture. Now let me welcome a few people here on Zoom as we get started. Welcome Nancy in Michigan. Welcome Olivia from the UK, but living in Madrid. Wonderful. Welcome Valerie in Ireland. Welcome Jade in Washington. Good to see you, Jade. Hello, hello. Welcome Constance again in Pennsylvania. Welcome Miriam in Asheville. Welcome Diana from the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. Wonderful. Welcome Michelle in Toronto, Virginia in Pennsylvania. Abhan, I hope I'm saying your name right. Abhan in Ireland. Derek in California. B in New York City. Dewey in Hawaii Island. Linda in Alberta, Canada. Astrid in Chile. Liz in Chicago. Vern in NYC. Lenape Land. Lauren Rose in Paris. Yay. Welcome everybody. And more people joining. Welcome, welcome. And also welcome to all those over on YouTube. Now, Taylor, as we're getting started here, let me just share a little bit more about you and your work for anybody who may not already know you. Taylor Shuler is a US-based astrologer and permaculture designer. What she's learned on her journey from the corporate arena to the great cosmic expanse helps her clients discern their path forward, especially when they're at a crossroads. With greater love for themselves, Taylor's clients thrive, making the world a better, more beautiful place. Through astrological readings, consultations, and horoscopes, those wanting to learn how to build bridges, find harmony, navigate the fringes, or make the world just a little better, find that Taylor's intersectional, social activist, regenerative, intergenerational, and nature-connected lens provides the compassionate wisdom and practical action plans that they're seeking, supporting solutions to housing, food, labor, income, knowledge sharing, health, resource, and restorative justice issues motivates Taylor to make the world a little better than it was when she entered it. Singing, food, nature, nature-based design systems, tiny houses, rites, wisdom traditions, traveling, and watching the sky are some of her favorite things in addition to astrology. And Taylor, I just love this unique blend of how you're bringing these different topics together with astrology to make the world a better place. It's so beautiful. Thank you for all that you are doing.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Jocelyn, for that introduction. I'm really so happy to be here. It's a privilege to be sharing and to be in conversation with you all.
Wonderful. Well, it is an honor to have you here. So your topic for today is Natural Design for Thriving, Astrology and Permaculture. And I know you have a beautiful presentation prepared for us. So I will just let you take it away. And we welcome everybody to put your questions in the chat as we're going along, and we will address the questions at the end of the presentation. And so we look forward to hearing what you all are wanting to ask as well. Okay, go right ahead, Taylor. I can't wait to
Awesome.
Your presentation.
Thanks again. So hi, everyone. I am Taylor Shuler. And today, what we're talking about, I'm looking forward to sharing with you thoughts on how to use the upcoming astrological transits over the next 3 years, basically in order to use them to their highest potential on a tangible level using the nature-based permaculture framework. And so today we will be addressing a couple of things. We're going to talk about why some people might shy away from astrology, what permaculture is and how you can use it with astrology, how astrology and permaculture can help us thrive. So again, I'm Taylor Shuler. And before we get to that, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit. This is a little bit about me and my background. Jocelyn gave me a beautiful introduction. I am an astrologer, and I am a host of the On Thriving Astrology and More podcast and YouTube channel, where you can find my horoscopes, interviews, and natal chart readings with change makers who have faced a crossroads in their life, and they share their journey through their challenges to emerging and embracing and sharing their gifts, which you just might find helpful or interesting to you. Some of my core values are connection, curiosity, and courageous compassion and joy. And I really enjoy supporting you all on your journey towards thriving in embracing a greater sense of clarity about your natural gifts and talents and how your impact is connected to our greater purpose here on Earth. I'll say that I take a liberal arts approach to astrology, and I blend evolutionary, traditional, Hellenistic, and modern lineages among influences from others. So that's where I'm coming from. Sorry, this presentation was wanting to be a little tricky on me, so I'm just having to click around a little bit. There we go. So what's the end game? We're talking about 2023, 2024, and 2025, but what's the end game? So there's just so much information, and the possibilities are absolutely endless for what the next 3 years and beyond hold. Just after the end of 2025, though, we're going to have this Saturn-Neptune conjunction folks have talked about. I know Jocelyn talked about it. That's February 20th, 2026, Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries. And there's an astrologer named Andre Barbeau. He talked about this conjunction in his book, Planetary Cycles, Mundane Astrology. And what he said was, the next conjunction in 2026 is the most benefic configuration of the century, and its interplanetary partnership will work for the best in a splendid relaunch of civilization. It contains a harmonious relationship between primordial polar opposites, the coming together of the external and the internal, the rational and spiritual, mind and soul. Human beings surpassing themselves while experiencing life on a higher level. Really exciting stuff.
Wow, I love that. That is incredible. I love that quote.
Yeah. And so when I'm looking at all of this, I have chills right now, just full body chills, just reading that out loud. So when I've looked at the transits for the next 3 years, and also keeping in mind what Barbeau said, what do I make of it? You know, what am I seeing? What am I thinking might happen? And really, I think all of the work that we're going to be putting in over the next 3 years is going to lead us to a utopian, future-focused ideal of individual rights that's going to lead us to a modern renaissance. So I am super hopeful, and I want to help us take our power back. I don't just want to talk about energies. I want to talk about solutions. I want to talk about action. I am a pie in the sky kind of person. I am an optimist and a dreamer. And so this is where I hope we can be, because why not daydream, you know? And we're going to get to daydreams a little later when we talk about Saturn.
And that's how we create our reality in any cases.
Absolutely.
Holding that highest vision. That's so beautiful. I love it.
Absolutely. So back to those questions that I started with. So why do some people shy away from astrology? If you're watching this, you might already know, but the answer is kind of simple. You know, it's powerful. And I seek to use astrology and share with others how to use astrology to make the world a better place, because one of the reasons astrological knowledge has been stigmatized, stolen, and hidden is because of its power. It has the power to change the world. I'd like us to reclaim it and empower those who want to make the world better. We've talked a bit about the Kali Yuga. From what I can tell, I think it'll be over in 440 years or so. I'm not the Kali Yuga expert, though. There's other experts here. I'm sure Jocelyn knows a lot more than I do. So I think we're off to a good start. We just have to keep it going until then. And, you know, we're probably not going to live 440 years. So what can we do that's sustainable, regenerative, long-term? In order for the powerful, though, to remain as such, those in power alienated us by various means over the centuries and perhaps longer, which today shows up as stigmatization, ridicule, and the delegitimization of astrology and other healing practices and wisdom traditions in order to encourage most people to stay away from it. And those who do stay away from it become their enforcers to reinforce the ridicule and stigma and taboo, ostracizing their brothers, sisters, neighbors, peers, colleagues, mates, and they really don't know why they're doing this. It's like, someone told me to do this and seems right, feels right, so I'm just going to keep doing that. But in this case, the long dead, yet in some ways still very alive in their legacy, powerful ancestors who sought to keep the power of astrology for themselves so that the common people couldn't have it, to liberate themselves and find equal footing, All of this stems from a scarcity mindset. There isn't enough. This is what what someone might say. There isn't enough, so I'll use my power to take more than I need. And then that leaves you with less. And this will make you angry, right? You're fighting for your survival. And so, those in power might feel that they have to weaponize whatever they can and then remove anything that gives the masses agency to reclaim their power and take back what has been stolen by the few. So perhaps a harsh view for a pie in the sky gal like me, but I did say I'm practical and I'm looking for some tangible solutions. And so we have to be real about the current state of things and why astrology is misunderstood. But it wasn't always misunderstood. We used to be more in touch with the language of the earth and the language of the cosmos. So I'll just jump in here to talk about what is permaculture. This is another question that we had. Permanent agriculture, that's where it comes from, or permanent culture, that's where permaculture comes from. It's a contraction of these two words. It's an ethical, nature-based regenerative design framework. I know that was a mouthful, but it was originally used for creating abundant, self-sustaining farms without pesticides or heavy machinery. Since permaculture's codification in the 70s, it's been applied to people, integrated economic principles, and business management. So permaculture essentially is a persistent system that supports human existence. Another definition of permaculture is that permaculture design is essentially a multifaceted, integrative, and ecologically harmonious method of designing human-centered landscapes. And that might sound familiar to you because what do we do with astrology? It's sort of like we're looking at our human landscape or our psychological landscape or the mundane landscape that are human-centered. So permaculture has 3 ethics that you'll see in the center here. The 3, trying to move my mouse so that you all can see, but I think it's disappearing. It has 3 ethics and 12 design principles. So I'm going to go through these and give you kind of an overview of it. But I do want to say there's a lot of great resources on permaculture. This is just a very high level overview so that when I'm talking about things later, you sort of have a foundation, know where I'm coming from. If you go to my website, I've got a presentation on it. There's permaculture.org. There's a lot of other free resources out there as well, and tons of videos on YouTube. So the 3 ethics of permaculture are earth care, fair share, and people care. And when we get to the planets in a couple minutes, you'll see that there's a way we can look at the planets that subscribes to the ethics or helps us work with these ethics or align with these ethics when we're working with the planets. And so that's your freebie too. So if you want to head over, I didn't mention, but that QR code will take you to the freebie page. So at any time during the presentation, feel free to get your phone out, snap that, and it's got all the info on the freebies. And if you wanted to follow along with that, you could. So we went through the 3 ethics. Now, the 12 design principles. The first design principle is to observe and interact. And we do this with astrology. We start with yourself, or in permaculture, as we call it, zone 0, and then we move outward. Or in astrology, we start with the stars and we move inwards. And we track our transits, our moon cycles, the way we track the dry season or the height of the sun, and where shadows are cast from the sun, where water pools. We look at the slope of the earth on the land in order to plant food that we later cultivate. You have to take all of these inputs into consideration, right? So you can see that there's this fluid harmony there between how astrology and permaculture both observe and interact in order to understand design and pattern. We also use a base map in permaculture where we map out from what I was saying before, zone 0 to zone 1, which is the home, and then the garden outside the home. And we go out to the fruit trees further than that. And further than, because you don't need the fruit trees to be close to your house, right? You want the things close to your house to be like in a closer zone, and things that are further away to be in a further away zone. Things that you don't use that often. And I'll show you a map of that in just a minute. But we do that in astrology as well, and we call it a horoscope. That's our base map in astrology. The second design principle for permaculture is catching and storing energy. I won't get into the 8 forms of capital today. Some of you may have heard of it, but that's essentially what we're talking about. We're talking about the different resources that we need. And we do that in astrology. We can talk about the second house. We can talk about, other planetary signatures or other signatures in the horoscope that would talk about our resources. So we also talk about whether someone wants to catch and store energy financially, or they want to do it in their love life or in their career or elsewhere. Where is the energy in the chart, and how can they catch and store energy and get more of an abundance of it? And when will the energy come? When are the transits coming? When there are, like, for example, there's different techniques that we could use, like zodiacal releasing or perfection, or, different advanced techniques to help us with the timing. So when are those things coming? We look at that for our clients as astrologers. Or if you're a client, you want your astrologer to look at that kind of stuff. And we want to make sure that we're aligning our values and putting our value where it counts. It's also about planning, time budgeting, and making a plan, mapping things out. The third principle is obtaining a yield. So here we're seeing a focus on building the energy that's captured and stored in the last principle in order to create abundance. And it's this abundance above what satisfies the need. And that's what we need in order to thrive and subvert the current structure that is based on scarcity that I was talking about just a minute ago. The fourth permaculture design principle is apply self-regulation and accept feedback. It's meant to use feedback loops to encourage positive growth and discourage negative growth. Then we've got the fifth principle, using and valuing renewable resources and services. So this is encouraging the sustainable use of various kinds of resources. Sixth, we have producing no waste. I think that's pretty straightforward. Seventh, we have designing from patterns to details. So this is all about recognizing patterns that can be reused in different applications. Next, we have integrating rather than segregating. And that's promoting incorporating as many elements into design and then having multiple functions rather than segregating elements or having singular uses for things. So, if you eat a banana, you've got a banana peel, you're not just going to throw it in the trash, you'll put it in the compost pile so that you can have multiple uses for it. Then ninth, we have using small and slow solutions. 10th is using and valuing diversity. The 11th principle is using edges and valuing the marginal. And this principle teaches us that new and interesting things are happening on the edges. They might not be popular, kind of like what we're talking about with astrology. And that just because something's invisible doesn't mean it should be discounted, and that both the edges and the marginal provide golden opportunities for abundance. And finally, the 12th principle is creatively using and responding to change, which reminds us to be intentional about all we do, and that we can handle change and see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge. So I know that was a lot. That was you usually do a week-long course to get through those 12 principles. So I don't expect you to remember all of this, just keep it high level. It's totally okay. But if you're interested in it, there's more time to explore. So how can you use these principles with astrology? David Holmgren is one of the co-originators of permaculture, and he pointed out that with the information revolution, we need more than just hardware and software or information and machinery. And with Uranus entering Gemini in 2025, this is another potential information revolution that is upon us. So this is relevant. Holmgren said we need to be able to think and we need to be able to design, to actually do something with all of the information. I see astrology as the language of nature, and we can be its humble translators as astrologers. And permaculture is the design from and of nature. So one is information, that's astrology, and one is what we do with that information, which is design, and that's permaculture. Because both of them come from nature, I see that the form is matching the content here, and that makes them naturally suited to be mutually beneficial to one another. Both astrology and permaculture are knowledge systems on the edges or margins of society. And although both are emerging and becoming more popular and almost mainstream, both of them are also in need of or support regenerative solutions. So you can think of permaculture as the principles, guidelines, themes, or frameworks that we can gather from understanding how nature works to produce abundance while seemingly not putting forth any effort. Because remember, before I was saying, this is something that's not using synthetic chemicals. We're not using heavy tractors and machinery in permaculture. We're thinking creatively about, if I have a tree here and the fruit falls and it composts, like what could benefit from that? Or if this tree is a legume, it's a nitrogen fixer, and what needs a nitrogen fixer instead of, and if I have ducks, they'll eat the slugs, and then I don't need to, put chemicals on my food, that sort of a thing. So we're thinking intentionally about where we're placing things and how we're using the energy that's available to us. But when you have this abundance mindset, right, it's 180 degrees different from the scarcity mindset. And Albert Einstein said, I think it was him who said this famous quote, insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different outcome. So let's flip the script and see if we can get some different results. How does that sound? So let me know in the chat, in the comments, if you're on board with that. I think that permaculture can help us with making astrology and its future regenerative. And, whether it's our personal lives, our businesses, if you've got a, social cause or an issue that you're trying to support, I think this is really the intention behind combining these, because they both take advantage of waves of energy as they crest and wane and blend together. So how do we use it? In astrology, we can do a few things. We can describe energy through archetypes or looking at the past. We can try to predict based on the same, or we can prescribe. And I'm most interested in this last one. And prescribe might be too strong a word even, because I think what I'm talking about is how do we use the energy to try to intentionally change the world for the better. And so I'm not talking about allopathically dictating, but inviting questions in a way where we think holistically, psychologically, somatically, environmentally, using the permaculture ethics of people care, earth care, and fair share. So we can think about it in, how we teach and learn things, or how we build organizations, or in learning how to support solutions, or there's a lot. I've got more to say here, but I want to save it for later when we get to the planets. But this is the chart that I was saying before with the zones. That's on the left, where you can see in the center, we've got people. Zone 0, we've got the house, and we've got like frequently visited areas. And then on the outside, zone 5, it says we've got the unmanaged wilderness zone. And on the right here, we've got a children's drawing of the solar system. And so you can see these patterns here. But again, permaculture's design and astrology is the language. So why are we doing this again? Why would we do this? Like Simon Sinek says, I like to start with why. So in permaculture, we look at nature. It's resilient, it's chaotic, and order forms when we recognize patterns, like the pattern language of astrology. And nature and chaos, it's infinitely creative. And in creativity, that's where we find solutions. So what we're doing here is we're putting astrology through the funnel of, we're putting astrology through the funnel of permaculture to make sustainability manifest. Both of these are sort of about taking the intangible and invisible and materializing them so that they are tangible and visible. And sustainability is subversive. So if we want to flip the script 180 degrees different, that's why we're doing it. So back to these questions. Question number 3 was, how can astrology and permaculture help us to thrive now that we know what they are and how we can use them together? So I'm going to go planet by planet, starting with the slowest moving outer planets and then make my way inwards. I'll be focusing on the major movements of the planet so that you can get an idea of what to expect. It's not science specific. So if you would like to know how this year's astrology and the future might show up for you personally, check out that QR code that's on there, my 2023 horoscopes at taylorshuler.com/shop. Promo codes for these horoscopes are also one of my free gifts. So you'll get that at the end of the presentation. And what we want to do here is we want to look at the larger transits to speak to the collective. So if you have a company or an organization or a social justice cause, like I was saying before, listen for what might apply to you, and then let us know in the chat and in the comments what is standing out to you as potential opportunities for making a positive impact on the world, making it a better place in a real, tangible way. And how can you enjoy doing it at the same time? Because that's really what thriving is. It's making sure that we can enjoy ourselves. All right, so starting off with Pluto. So we've got Pluto in Aquarius and Capricorn over the next 3 years. Pluto is going to hit that 0 degree mark of Aquarius 5 times. And what I'm seeing with Pluto is that we're entering an age of ingenuity. Aquarius is a fixed air sign. Fixed signs are really good at keeping things going. They don't usually start things, and they don't do really great with ambiguity, flexibility, and change. But these air signs are all about information, intellect, and networks. Aquarius is the opposite of the fixed fire sign Leo, which is the sign of the king. And Aquarius, on the other side, is related more to the collective and to groups. It was the king who was responsible for his people, his collective, and his group. It was the king who had to figure out how the system would run. And also who was responsible for building roads and aqueducts and creating infrastructure that would be used by the people, and would it endure for long periods of time, and would that enhance people's lives? And when you build roads and aqueducts and infrastructure of this kind, you also need to think about building something that doesn't just work for today. You actually have to build for the future that you're building it for, right? And so that's why we associate Aquarius with the future, with forward thinking, progress, science, technology, but also eccentricism, because people and things that are anachronistic, that don't work today, but work in the future, whether they're from way in the past or in the future, they seem a bit eccentric to us in the here and now, because it's out of time. It's not normal today. We've never seen it before. So while in Leo, we see the king standing alone, in Aquarius, we see the infrastructure and the other things that benefit and affect all of us, regardless of how eccentric or weird we are as individuals. It's that collective. And so I think this Pluto in Aquarius transit is going to be inviting liberation from social conditioning, radical transformation and empowerment to utilize technology, empowering groups for building infrastructure to make the world a better place in the long run. It is about big revolutions and perhaps rebellion, and this deeply rooted shaking of the infrastructure like figurative roads and bridges, aligning with a tribe who honors your own individuality, your own uniqueness, agency, power, dignity, and rights. And it's totally the power of the weird. It's also, I think, going to be about unions and workplaces. So looking at the slide, we've got 3 boxes on here, and this is how we can use this Pluto transit and energy to align with the permaculture ethics of earth care, fair share, and people care. So we want to rediscover ancient secrets of the earth and the cosmos so that we have the power to transform how we care for our home, our earth. We want to unearth those ancient and hidden wisdom and knowledge to empower individual and collective healing transformations. And we want to reveal powerful sources of abundant wealth, which, when equitably distributed, will transform the world for future generations. And so if I had to sum it up, what I would say is we can activate our collective power and remember to continue to come together despite our differences. I hate to be kind of tacky and like bring in like US currency, although currency is definitely a part of this, but it's about that e pluribus unum. It's out of many one. Now, I do bring that up because, as we know, Pluto is going to square the nodes. And the last time that happened, we saw major changes in power structures and leaders stepping down, exchanges, financial market disruptions. We might see changes in the printing or minting of money and exchange rates. There could be changes in chemical and technology that we use in agriculture. I think topics concerning waste management systems could come up. So I think looking to the generations where that south node is hitting their natal Pluto, or the nodes or squaring Pluto. So look at your own chart, or if you're an astrologer, if you want to think about it from a generational perspective, what's being activated right now. We've got Pluto in Scorpio and Pluto in Leo being activated natally, the whole generation. It's calling that in to restructure power, to change the balance. So Pluto in Leo is basically the baby boomer generation. Pluto in Scorpio is essentially the millennial generation. And we're calling in these generations, any kind of tension here, or any kind of conversations that we're seeing on a big global scale. We're calling them in to rebalance the distribution of profit. Who gets a say in making the rules, especially when it comes to social contracts, regulations of things like chemicals, money, food, executive pay, caps, and profit. So those are just a few thoughts about Pluto and Aquarius, and there's some dates on here if you want to take a photo of that, or just get a screen grab of when Pluto goes into Aquarius. When it stations retrograde at 0 Aquarius, that's going to trigger that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that we had around December 20th, 19th, 20th, 21st of 2020. So that's a date to look out for. It'll go back into Aquarius in June. It'll square the nodes where we might see those changes in power, changing faces, shakeups with exchanges in July. And then we see Pluto stationed direct at 27 Capricorn in October, and then it'll move forward again. All right, so Uranus. So we know we've had Uranus in Taurus, and we've been looking at food and fuel systems. And this Venus Cazimi that we had on October 22nd is helping us end that Venus Cazimi and Scorpio cycle. All of that, the beginning of that Venus Cazimi and Scorpio cycle heralded the beginning of petroleum fuel cars. And I think that this Uranus and Taurus transit is speaking to that as well. And so what we're looking at is radically new ways of valuing things, of simplifying life, and what we give our power to. Upswings and downswings. We've been seeing, especially related to debt, money, mortgages, prices, profits, and the values that are important for us to make material and emotional decisions. So how food creates suffering and loss if it's poison, really. Not knowing the poison that's in our food. And we need to lean into the squares to the sign in order to balance this out. So what signs are square to Taurus? We look to Leo, and this Leo energy helps us speak up and take the spotlight when we've been volunteering our power away. And we can also look to this Aquarian energy to help us build a better future for everyone, not just ourselves, and find power in numbers. And I did mention before about that Gemini transit, kind of information revolution. And here, aligning with the permaculture ethics, we can use Uranus transits to harness the Earth's energy to power itself and our needs in radical new ways. We can harness our collective intellectual and psychic energies to empower radical new ways of being and caring for one another as people. And we can harness the energy of the 8 forms of capital for radical new ways of equitably distributing resources. Now, Neptune. This is going to be quick, but we'll come back to Neptune a little later. And this is really about connecting our collective and individual spiritual missions to our individual incarnations and knowing how to join together in an ideal way to fight for utopian goals. Kind of like the dream team from a superhero movie is how I see this Neptune moving through Pisces and Aries transit. Now, from a permaculture perspective, how can we care for the earth and people and give people a fair share? With Neptune, we can hold the space for endless possibilities and communing with the spirit of the earth and communing with one another on a spiritual level and sharing from a spiritually enriching place. A couple dates to look out for. March 30th is when Neptune, in 2025 is when Neptune will enter Aries. It will retrograde and enter again in October of that year. And then finally, what I mentioned before, that February 2026, where it will meet up with Saturn at 0 degrees of Aries. All right, Saturn. So we're going to spend a little bit of time. And Jocelyn, how are we doing on time? I just want to check.
Yeah, this is so wonderful, Taylor. Thank you for everything you're doing here. So it's 43 after the hour.
Okay.
So we have about 17 minutes to go till the hour.
Okay, cool. So I'll speed through this last little bit. So with Saturn, what we can do is build slow and enduring systems for environmental management and earth and regenerative structures. We can build strong, slow, integrity-based approaches to social and community structures, and also strong structures for equitable and just distribution of resources. And I'll just say, Saturn in Pisces is about daydreaming reality. Ernst Bloch says that a dream is something that's not based on reality, but a daydream is something that is based in reality. And that's how we can use this Saturn transit to make the world a better place. Now with Jupiter, this is all about widely teaching and sharing abundantly productive, regeneratively healing ecosystem remediation and management practices. Also, adaptable, culturally relative practices that support generosity, understanding, learning, and quality of life. And then also widely teaching and sharing models of equitable, abundantly regenerative distribution through the 8 or more forms of capital. And so we'll see Jupiter move through Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. I do want to say, don't have time for it today, but I will be talking a lot about the Jupiter Chiron conjunction, the US Chiron return. This is the first Jupiter Chiron conjunction in Aries that we will be aware of and live through, because Chiron was not discovered until it reached 3 degrees of Taurus. This is huge. I mean, it is really the crux of everything that we're going to see to get us from where we begin to where we sort of wrap up at the end of 2025 before that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. It's all about whose battles are you fighting and why, and the rights of the individual, the rise of the charismatic leader, and making sure that we're staying in integrity and aligning with the things that we truly care about so that we have our needs met. So I can't emphasize enough this Jupiter Chiron conjunction. It's also going to be, Jupiter is going to meet up with Eris. And on that date of the Jupiter Chiron conjunction, March 11th of 2023, Venus is going to be conjunct Eris as well. Eris was the goddess of discord. She kind of threw the apple into the wedding that made us start the Trojan War. And I can't say enough. So definitely, if you sign up for my email list, you can learn more about this. It's huge. Mars when it goes retrograde, we can use these transits to slow down and reassess our strategy and our energy levels. What are we doing? It's retrograde right now. It'll go direct in January at 8 degrees of Gemini. Really fascinating. If you look at that 8 degrees of Gemini degree, what happened in the past there, it was activated in the year 1891, where there were some religious and cultural developments. And there was actually something the Pope Leo XIII put out called the Rerum Novarum, which was the rights and duties of capital and labor. And it was the first time every 30 years after that, until they reached the 100-year anniversary of it, popes would put out sort of like another one of these letters or whatever it was to talk about a spiritual perspective on capitalism and labor and how people should own things and not own things. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's connected to this 8 degrees of Gemini, but it's also connected to the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction, the nodes moving into Aries and Libra, and all of the energy that we're seeing moving forward. So what we can do with Mars is look at how we can cross-pollinate to achieve our goals, how we can use the Hegelian dialectic to respectfully promote the activation of our individual dharma, and how we can activate equitable distribution of resources and reevaluate any strategies that we're currently using and their effectiveness. For Venus, the retrogrades in Leo and Aries are going to ask us to gather courage, bravery, fortitude, and spirit to leave our egos at the door and band together for freedom and autonomy. And this will echo that theme I mentioned before of whose battles are we fighting and what is a worthy cause. I think we're also going to see some more of that rise of an individual charismatic personality. The last time we had Venus go retrograde in Leo was during Custer's last stand. His widow's story made him a hero. And, I don't mean to throw that out there and then not say more about it, because obviously it's problematic, but there's just an example of what can happen with Venus retrograde in Leo. But we also want to take action. We want to start something new. You can bring the heat and we can co-create healing together for regenerative fertility, beauty, and enjoyment, getting approaches that center love, forgiveness, and a high quality of life, and also practices that center equitable, respectful, loving distribution. So I've got Mercury in the nodes, and then we'll be all wrapped up. So hang in there with me. So I think it's really interesting to look at Mercury's retrogrades and Cazimis, because we usually just say, oh, Mercury's retrograde and things are wild. Well, why don't we look at them from the elemental perspective and ask ourselves and see how the elements are shifting? So you can see in this chart here, we've got Mercury going retrograde in Earth with sprinkles of water and then a little air and then fire. And then it's fire and air, and then we move into water. And so what does that mean? How can we use that? Well, when Mercury's retrograde, we want to use it to be practical, to think about how we educate, how we communicate, what solutions are we coming up with? How do we make things culturally relative? How do we find spaces for healing and nonviolent communication? So when it's in earth signs, the opportunity is to be practical, grounded, think about material resources and slow, steady, stable solutions. And we just want to notice when we get into analysis paralysis. When Mercury's retrograde in water, we want to use those times to lean into our intuition, our curiosity, our instincts, and emotional intelligence, and notice when we are or are not feeling appreciation or value. When it's in air signs, we want to think about what information do we need, what conversations need to have, and analysis needs to take place, and notice when we're searching too long and need to stop. And then finally, with fire, we really want to invite in visionary ideas, innovative, pioneering, creative, broad scale solutions that elevate the mind. And we want to notice when we're feeling depleted in our energy, vitality, and freedom. And with the nodes, what the story is it's all about fighting for what's right, fair, and needed. Individuals having truly democratic say. It's a continuation of that October 22nd Venus star point that was activated. When the nodes move into Aries and Libra, that point will be activated. It's all about new ways of being in relationships that the Taurus eclipses of April 30th, May 14th, and October 25th and November 8th of 2022 brought to light. What we transformed, released, ended, discovered, and uncovered new things in relationships. In terms of society, we were awakened to the poison in our food and food chain disruptions, how inflation has affected our ability to buy healthy food. And now we're trying to balance who can get their needs met and how we're bringing the system as a whole back into balance, finding the right partnerships to push our work forward and support individual sovereignty and dignity. And so you do want to filter all of this through your rising signs. So check out that QR code. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Taylor. This was really, really amazing. I loved that look at Mercury retrograde through the elements. Thank you so much for that. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. I was like, I gotta get to Mercury. You gotta see the heat map that I've created.
Yes, the heat map. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. And yes, I loved so much of it. And we have lots of beautiful comments in the chat, you know, that you can check out at some point when you have a chance. No rush, but lots of good, beautiful comments here. So yes, let's talk about your work and where people can find you and your free gift and everything. So where can people find you online? And with all of this, where there's links involved, I'll put them in the chat here on Zoom. And then also anyone who's watching this later as a recording, just scroll a little bit below the video and you'll find those links. But yeah, Taylor, tell us about where we can find you, and do you have any new projects coming up, programs, anything you want us to know about?
Yes. And all right. So let me make sure I'm sharing this. Is it sharing? Can you see?
No, I just see like the
there we go.
There we go.
All right. So you can find me at, so thank you, Jocelyn. Sorry, I was distracted. Yes, the link is in the chat. You can find me. Thank you for signing up for the newsletter, Lauren Rose, in Evening Song. TaylorShuler.com/shop is where these are. The QR code will get you your free gift and to my website. I have a podcast. It's called On Thriving, Astrology, and More. You can get that at anchor.fm/Taylor-R-Shuler. If anyone's just listening on audio, I want to let you know my name's spelled Shuler. Often folks put a C in it. There's not one anymore. Long story. I'm also on YouTube, so you can get the video version of the podcast on YouTube. That is youtube.com/C/Taylor Shuler. My books are open for consultations. I do one-on-one consultations. I love helping people find their purpose, passion, mission, and vocation and profession. I do timing and just regular natal chart, horoscopes, elections, things like that. I do have upcoming events on my website, including Kepler College's astrological forecast for 2023, where I'll get into a little bit more detail on 2023. We won't do the permaculture, so I'll have more time to talk in more detail. But that's essentially where you can find me. So
wonderful. Thank you so much. And tell us a little more about your free gift.
Yes. So at the top of the Planetary slides, you saw there were 3 boxes. And so that free gift is really, you can see here, it is a PDF where you get to see how we use those permaculture ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share by the planet. And it's color coded too, so that you can also embody that planetary energy and color. These are the colors that I use for the planets, and it's informed by many different things, my liberal arts approach to astrology and Vedic astrology. And then the second one is here you've got the 2023 year ahead horoscopes. And so it's a pretty deep discount on all of the 2023 horoscopes. You can get either just the general year ahead, or you can get one rising sign. You can get 3 signs if you want to have your sun, moon rising, or you can get all 12. And so I believe that starts at about, I think it's like $7, $17, something like that. So definitely check it out. You'll get videos with that. And yeah, so those are the freebies. Oh, and thank you, Vern. That's so kind. Soul expanding.
Yes, you are soul expanding, Taylor.
Oh,
That's been so inspiring.
thank you. Yeah, I'll have to read all of these messages in the chat.
Yes. So everybody definitely go and claim Taylor's free gift. I put the free gift URL in the chat here on Zoom. And if you're watching this later as a recording, just scroll down a little bit below the video and you'll see the link to her free gift, as well as those codes for the year ahead horoscopes and other links to her work right below the video. So I would love, okay, and there's the QR code larger. That's fantastic. So I would love to know if any of you out there have questions for Taylor. Go ahead and put them in the chat here on Zoom or also over on YouTube, and I'll check on YouTube as well. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat or the comments now.
Yeah, and I see Lauren Rose, you said you're from New Orleans and you live in Paris. And yes, I've lived in both of those places. I've lived so many places. I should mention, you reminded me, Lauren Rose, about I also do locational astrology. So I think it blends nicely with the permaculture as well. So if you're looking for a new place to live, you want to know where you can find people to meet up with who have the types of energies that are going to support you in the initiatives that you're working on to move us all to a higher vibration, to a higher level. It's a wonderful way to use locational astrology, which is basically putting the map, the horoscope onto a map of the world. And then we find the best places for you. So
that's wonderful. That's such a super valuable reading, a locational astrology reading. I highly recommend that for anybody thinking about moving, or just, it's like, it's so helpful even to know your locational astrology for where you currently are, even if you're not planning on moving, because then you can know what energies you're working with and know what might be easier for you in this place or harder for you in this place, and really align with that, like we've been talking about all along, really align with the energy of the place where you are and the astrology of that place for you. So
yeah. And I'm also just curious, Jocelyn, like if folks can let us know, have you heard of permaculture before? Are you all here because you have heard about it and you're just like, oh, wow, I didn't think you could combine them? Or, or is this brand new to you? Never before. Okay. Yes, have heard of it. Haven't, but think it's awesome. Okay, cool. Oh, I'm sorry. Every time I click on the chat, it unshares my screen.
Oh. Now we do have a question from Jocelyn. Hi, Jocelyn, out in the audience. I love that we have the same name. Can locational astrology work for finding a home or starting a business?
Oh, absolutely. You can use it on a global scale. You can also use it on a local level. So if you're like, I need to find a place that's going to bring people together, that's the kind of business I have. I need to run events. We can look at a specific town that you're in and find the best neighborhood in town. Obviously you need some information, if I don't know I haven't been to Topeka, Kansas, for example, you might need to help me get familiar with the neighborhoods if there's one that, wouldn't work for you, but we can figure all of that out together. We can look at business charts. We can look at natal charts. We can find you a home. We can find you a person. We can find you a vacation. We can find you all types of things. I think it's like so much fun to just explore the world.
Yeah. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
You can find the best place for you to find a relationship, the best place for you to start a business. It's really incredible.
Yeah. I see, Olivia, you have a permaculture design certificate. I love it. I loved getting my PDC. I got it in Portugal in 2014 at a place called Varcea da Gonçala. It's beautiful if you can ever go. It was through the Permaculture UK. Peter Cow was my permaculture teacher, so I highly recommend all of those. If any of you are interested in doing a PDC, it's a transformational experience. I should probably run one day. I'm not right now, but I'm hyping it up like I am. Yeah, definitely do a PDC if you can. Oh, Ava, you live in Florida, you've moved away many times, but you keep coming back. There could be a reason. I'm curious what you think. You probably have an inner knowing, right? Like what are the patterns that keep coming up? But I'm sure we could look at transits to your chart, which is timing, and also your locational chart, and just see like what's the story. It's fascinating. Oh yeah, go to Portugal for a PDC, permaculture design course. Yeah.
So Taylor, I was wondering if you have any more thoughts on that Saturn and Neptune conjunction. I know you shared a little bit about it at the beginning, but do you have any other thoughts about that intuitively or astrologically? I'm so fascinated by that. And it really is just the merging of complete polar opposites together.
Yeah. I have some thoughts, but let me look at my notes because I know there's some stuff that
yeah, and not to put you on the spot
No.
around that topic, but I just think it could be really fascinating to explore.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating for a couple of reasons. One is that there's that co-presence that starts out like as soon as on March 7th of this year, when Saturn moves into Pisces. Saturn and Neptune will be together. And I think that's when we start getting the breadcrumbs, the seeds of what's to come. They both have, Neptune and Pisces both have this way of pulling us out of time and making them blend and merge in ways that we don't know right away. So I do think that the entrance of Saturn into Pisces is going to really kick us off in ways that we won't know it hit us until we're out of it. That exact conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries in February of 2026. I looked back at the last time it happened, and essentially what happened was folks got really confused. It was like they were all really passionate and fired up. I'll just say it like transparently. There was a battle, in the Revolutionary War, and or is it I should know which war it was before I talk about it. It was either the Civil War or the Revolutionary War. Now I think it was the Civil War.
Uh-huh.
And essentially, like the good guys, if you can say that, quote unquote, air quotes, big quotes, won. But they won because there was this confusion in information and instructions on where the soldiers were supposed to go. So if we extract that,
oh, interesting,
right, metaphorically, it's like our spirit driving us forward, and it doesn't even matter like if you have the information, but Neptune and Pisces can be very confusing and foggy and stuff like that, but it is the spirit and it is the good that prevails when we put our passions and our energy towards what we deeply care about. And that's really why I kept saying this is about whose battles we're fighting.
Yeah, wow, that's so interesting. The information being confused, and that's how the good guys won. Saturn, Neptune. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really about, again, what I said, like Ernst Bloch, daydreaming utopia, grounding our dreams in reality. It's about the expansion of and creating containers for personal individual spirituality. So I think there is going to be an expansion of the healing arts, of chirotic arts, Reiki, astrology, tarot, all of these things. People are going to really need a container for all of that. And it's just this really passionate, beautiful, like blossoming time of daydreaming utopia.
Yeah. It's such a big shift from Saturn and Capricorn and Aquarius, right? Saturn and Pisces. It's like we can really build our dreams out and build the visions, create structure around all of these metaphysical, esoteric concepts.
Yeah.
Just really, it's so exciting.
And I love Aries. So I think Aries gets some stigma sometimes, but I love Aries. I'm a Capricorn sun, but I've got a 29-degree Pisces rising. So I love the Aries energy. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. So Vern says, can we choose our own battles? I think that's an existential question.
It is. I mean, can we? Like, yes and no. Of course we can, like every day, but then to a certain extent, that is what I think the nodes and the eclipses in Aries and Libra are going to invite for us. It's going to be kicked off by that Jupiter Chiron conjunction. That's going to say, what is my individual dignity? What is my individual, what resources are available to me as an individual? And how are the people who have the power and have the wealth making it so that we are dependent, or, how are our structures organized in a way where my individual liberty or rights or needs are not getting met? And so I think that the individual battle becomes collective, and what we're being invited to ask ourselves and lean into is, am I joining with other people who share my individual battle that I'm choosing to engage in? Or am I the pawn or the soldier of someone else's thing that they've got going on, and they're kind of, pulling the strings or making it so that we're working within this structure? So I think on that level, you get to choose, and hopefully, we all get to, like, I'm going to be pie in the sky. Hopefully we all get to, like, choose what we want to do and thrive and enjoy our life and engage or not engage with whatever we want to whatever extent we want. But I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. And there's such tremendous opportunity coming in over these next few years, just opportunities like we haven't ever felt in our lifetimes. And it's so interesting how, people are waking up, raising their consciousness, coming into connection with these higher possibilities. And it's like the number of people who are in connection with the higher possibilities are growing.
Yeah.
And at the same time as these opportunities are opening up. So it's like, the old world order is going to be losing its power more and more. I really see that. I really feel that. So
yeah.
Fascinating and exciting.
Yeah. And I see Valerie says, would Saturn help slow down time in Neptune and not get lost in too much of the fogginess? It's a really fascinating question. And I would say perhaps at times. Now, from a technical astrological perspective, when we're asking how do two energies engage with each other and which one, like, quote unquote, wins, there's a couple different ways we can look at it. If we're looking at the short term, we look at, like, the horoscope and we see, like, which one is rising first or last and which one is overcoming and all of that. We also can just take a step back and, like, think about it from a really basic perspective, and which one is further away, which one moves slower. And usually the slower planet, quote unquote, wins. And so I think that with Neptune, it is so porous. There may be times where we think, we got to hold on time. Like, I got a container for my time. Like, I got this. And then we'll kind of keep moving as we are. And we don't even know that Neptune is taken over the fog. We're in the fog. So it's hopeful, though, and I'm down for hope. So why not? Let's try, see how it goes. And maybe we can come up with, like, a time machine with the Pluto and Aquarius, and then the Neptune and the Saturn and Pisces. I did actually see the research. The resurgence of a TED Talk from about 11 years ago about quantum physics. And so this guy, his last name was O'Connor, I believe. The talk is very hard to find, but he put a computer chip into a vacuum. And because he said that inanimate objects do have lives the way that we do, but also not the way that we do. But, like, we're impacted by people, by resources, by sunlight. Well, if you take, like, this, my moon calendar here, it is impacted actually by the sunlight, the air movement, my voice. And so that's why when we say we can manifest things, you talk to a plant and you talk nice to it or mean to it, or a bowl of rice, it gets moldy, right? Because these inanimate objects are absorbing the energies that they are able to interact with. So he took a microchip and he put it into a vacuum. It had no air. I think there was no gravity, there was no light, there was no sound. And so this microchip vibrated and didn't vibrate at the same time. And he said, this is the definition of being in two places at once, to both vibrate and not vibrate at the same time. And so if we can do that to a microchip by taking all of the impressions away from it, all of the inputs, and just letting it be itself, he made it akin to like being in an elevator by yourself. And he was like, well, when I'm in an elevator by myself, I dance and I do what I want. Well, let's let that little microchip do that too. Let's let it be in an elevator by itself where no one's watching it. And how does it come alive? And so, that Neptune, Saturn, Pisces with the Pluto and Aquarius could absolutely be like, and the fact that Neptune's out of time and this video is resurfacing now when we've got Saturn in the last second of Aquarius. I do have on my website a talk about the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction between Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries. And I think a lot of that could apply to the Saturn transit as well, where we see things sort of like foreshadowing with the Saturn and Aquarius, and then we'll see it echo back once Saturn gets into Aries as well. But it's not going to be just Aries, it's going to be Taurus, right? Because by then Neptune will be in Aries. So it's going to be a very long echo on this one.
Very interesting. Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah, it is all becoming so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great question, Valerie. You just got me on a whole tangent.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Taylor, for all that you have shared here. This has been fantastic.
Yes.
And just such a pleasure to share time with you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you who are here and those watching later. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your feedback. Love to connect with you. So much gratitude.
Wonderful. And everybody, if you haven't yet, be sure to claim Taylor's free gift. I'll put this in the chat one more time, just so everybody on live here, in case anyone missed it. And again, if you are watching as a recording, just scroll down a little bit below the video and you'll see it right there. And Taylor, I hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. See ya.
And thank you, everybody, so much for being on live with us or watching this as a recording. We have one more wonderful live interview coming up for you today. We will talk to Rachel, Aeolian Heart, at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that's in about 46 minutes from now. So join back on this Zoom link or YouTube channel, wherever you might be attending live. And we'll see you then. And also, as I mentioned in the last call, be sure to check out our amazing and wonderful pre-recorded interviews today. We have Kater Brown and Simone Wright. You do not want to miss either of those. They are each just absolutely brilliant individuals, and they are bringing forward their highest gifts in these interviews. I loved recording the interviews with both Kater and Simone. So go enjoy those today as well. All right. Lots of love, everybody.